down the garden path, and thank you for joining me here today. Today's episode is all about August in the garden, all the trials and tribulations that go with gardening at this time of year. So I hope you will enjoy the show, and let's get started. First of all, did you survive July and the heat? Boy, was it a lot. And I know it means many things are suffering, and I'm going to cover all the different categories of plants. But hang in there, keep up the watering as best you can, trim off any dead or dried up things, and not to worry about your lawns. So I'll fill you in the details as we go along. But first of all, oddly enough, this is the time of year to start thinking about fall bulbs. I think it's a little early, but if you have a busy fall in store, or if you're really specific about the bulbs you want, then it's now late August is the time to start thinking about it. We'll talk more about it in September in the garden as well, but I'm just putting it out there. Also, and by bulbs, I don't mean just flowering bulbs. I also mean garlic bulbs. If garlic is something that you want to try planting, or you do plant and want to plant more of it, then usually the best varieties go first. I say buy local to your area, but if you want to start researching what's out there and what's available and the different types of garlic available, now's the time. So there's your beginner research project for the month of August. Other than that, we'll go right to other vegetables and herbs in the garden. This is a tricky time because if you're growing vegetables and herbs, they can start to look a little tired and a little done. It's okay to go ahead and give your herbs a good haircut, cut off any dried and damaged foliage. But even if you think it needs a rejuvenation, now's the time to do that. It's okay. You won't hurt it. You won't kill it. It will grow back, and it's got a lot of growing season yet to do. So if you need to cut back your dill or your basil or your chives, I've been looking at my chives, and I think they're not dried on the tips, but they're like kind of throughout. So I feel like they need a bit of a haircut to kind of get them going and freshen them up again. So you won't hurt them. I'm not saying like cut them back to the soil, but giving them a good haircut. It's a good time of year to do that. And you can alternate if you've got multiple plants of, let's say, oregano or thyme. Cut one now, wait a week and a half or 2 weeks, and then cut the other one back. So you really extend the life of those herbs. When it comes to our vegetables, harvest is coming. So depending on what you're growing, my tomatoes are turning red. My lettuce, I'm ready to sow a second batch of lettuce because it hasn't bolted. I'm really excited about how much lettuce we've been able to harvest for ourselves this year, but it's getting tall and getting a little bitter. And so I'm excited to sprinkle some more seeds I have a self-watering container. Shout out to Crescent Gardens. I love this self-watering container, and it's a nice rectangular one. I've got a post about it on Instagram, and we really haven't watered our lettuce, and it's been super happy, and it has grown really well. So it's time to sow a second harvest. So I'm going to buy some more seeds and try starting them in that container as well as I think a couple of plants from a local garden center. I will plant those also to kind of just get that succession planting going. There is still plenty of time to grow things. If you want to grow any of the cooler crops like lettuce, like spinach, romaine lettuce too, you can start now in the garden, and they will grow into the fall, into the cool temperatures. So it's a perfect time to do that. You do want to, anything that's ripening, you want to keep an eye on it so that the critters don't get to it. So if your tomatoes are ripening, your grape tomatoes are ripening, you want to be quick or keep an eye on them so that you don't lose it. I love it when the raccoons take a bite or the chipmunks take a bite of something and then just leave it to rot on the vine. So keep an eye, and also remove any dry debris, anything that could attract fungus to your vegetable garden. You want to keep that clean. So making sure any dried leaves, any dead leaves, you're really cleaning it off the soil and cutting it off the plant as well, so that you're not attracting mildew. We haven't had rain in quite a while here in the GTA, so the Greater Toronto Area. I don't know about where you are listening, but we haven't had any, and there isn't any in the forecast. We've had a few cooler days the last little while, but they're saying the end of this week is going to be back up to really extreme temperatures again. So I'm sure everyone is watering a lot. And the downside with that, with the humidity and the lack of even wind, is um, while you're trying to baby your plants, you could be attracting mildew. So you want to make sure any debris, give everything a light trimming. I also like to trim the leaves. If I have leaves, tomato leaves that are hiding or covering my tomatoes, I like to trim those off so that the tomato get more sunlight. We aren't done yet in the vegetable garden. There is still some attention to pay to the garden and to help you be much more successful. Um, you can top up with some more compost or whatever fertilizer you've been using in your vegetable garden because we've been watering more, so you may be depleting that soil a little bit more as well. So whether it's, hen manure, sprinkling some hen manure. So especially if you start to see the leaves turning yellow or light green instead of the regular, deep green that they should be, that's especially if you're growing in raised beds or containers. If you're growing in the ground, you might want to, top dress with some more compost. Mushroom compost is a great option to, just to continue to improve that soil. Give the plant some more vitamins and nutrients, but also helps retain the moisture too. So again, because we've been watering so much with this heat, a lot of things are being depleted unintentionally in our soil. So adding some compost is as a good way to always um, improve the soil, regardless of whether it's a vegetable garden or a plant. And speaking of planters, planter boxes or raised beds, many of us also grow annuals in containers or hanging baskets. And this is definitely the time of year, especially if you bought them early on, like that Mother's Day weekend. They are looking tired and they are looking dry, and they may even be stunted in growth. So it's okay if they need a haircut, same thing. If there's a particular plant in there that is just looks done, like there's no rescuing it, even trimming, then go ahead and take it out, especially in like a big pot that might be sitting by your front door. Go ahead and take it out and then look for another plant, maybe in your garden, maybe a hosta, or pick up another annual at your local garden center and plop it in to freshen it up. They too also have been, because we've been watering like crazy, they will also be depleted by with any nutrients. So adding some fertilizer, whether you use a water soluble one, like a 20-20-20 all purpose, put it in a watering can, make sure that it dissolves before you put it in and water your plants with it. There's also some available if you don't have any. Pellet form. So for flowering, same thing, 20-20-20 or 13-13-13, a general all-purpose that you would sprinkle the little pellets in your containers. And then when you're watering it, it helps them dissolve and to improve the soil and feed your plants. So this is the time of year. August is definitely a time where our annuals need a bit of TLC. They need a haircut too, like lobelia. They can definitely be ready for a haircut. So not to worry, they will keep growing, especially if we fertilize and keep watering. Giving them a bit of a haircut is just going to encourage new growth. Bleeding hearts can be that way. Same with Calicoa, I believe I might be mispronouncing it, but I think you know what I mean. So more of the delicate looking fillers in our hanging baskets, in our containers. Things like the canna, I'm sure they're doing well. Geraniums love this hot and heat and dry, and they're doing well. But deadheading is important also, especially when it comes to geraniums. So if things aren't really filling out, then take a look, take the hanging basket down, have a look and see what needs to be deadheaded, what needs to be trimmed. We want these baskets to go until October, right? Until we're ready to replace them with our fall baskets. So no need to rush out and get anything new. It's just paying a little bit of more attention in the dregs of summer to our hanging baskets and our planters at the front of our house. You definitely can put perennials in your containers. So if you do have a spot or have a couple of perennials in your garden that need dividing, like hostas, it's a good thing to try for sure. Um, do, 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 do. Definitely keeping an eye out for insect damage, mildew, especially with the humidity and the increased watering, spider mites, aphids. Those are the things to really watch out for, so that they don't get ahead of us. Um, you can purchase ladybugs that will help with your aphids. Your local garden center should have them, or you can check online for a source near you. It's shocking but releasing live ladybugs sometimes can be controversial. We're not releasing, you want to make sure you're releasing native ones and ones that won't disturb your local ecosystem. But they really do work at taking care of any aphid problems. Yeah. Again, I'm hoping that helps with any questions that you might have regarding containers and vegetables and to start thinking about bulbs. Next up is lawns. I'm sure everybody's lawn is looking sad and tired, and really it's not dead. So I don't want anybody to panic. I do not want anybody to fertilize. It's not the time to fertilize. If you can water, please do. You do want to have some moisture in there, but do not expect immediate results. They are not going to, the grass is not going to bounce back right away. It is going to take some, one rain. It's amazing how rainwater is way more just special for plants and trees and shrubs and everything. It's such a different thing when they get that deep watering that the rain brings. But until then, you want to water every other day, maybe an inch or 2 inches if you've got a little cup or a little something put on the lawn and just see how much water goes in. But you really will not see a huge change until the nights start getting a little bit cooler and it starts growing. Do not, if it's not really growing and it is kind of brown, no need to cut it. That's not going to encourage any new growth. I know that's a bit of a wives' tale. It's best to just leave it dormant and know that as soon as things start to cool down and we get some more water, more rainfall, that the grass is going to perk right back up again. Unfortunately, our grass goes dormant, but you will probably notice that the weeds do not go dormant. So this is a good time that you will really notice your weeds. They stay green, they keep growing, they'll poke up above the level of the lawn. So now is the time to really pay attention, especially crabgrass, which can be quite nasty and really get spread if we don't take care of it right away. Those seed heads really produce a lot of seeds that will germinate next year and be more. So you might have it only in a few spots this year, but if you don't deal with it, then you will have a lot more next year. So it's really important that you tackle that and get rid of the crabgrass. And if you don't know exactly what that is, they look like grass in your lawn. They're green. Their blades are a little bit thicker, a little wider, and then they've got these flat seed heads that kind of, I feel like almost in a star or a circular shape. You really want to get those pulled out, and you really want to do that before those seed heads form. And you also don't want to cut your grass when when the crabgrass has those seed heads on it, because then all you're doing is cutting it and spreading it on your lawn. So that's something to think about. So paying attention to the weeds. And if there's just itty bitty coming up, then get a little trowel, get a little spoon. I don't care what you get, little X-Acto knife, and get those plugs out while you can. And if you are watering your lawn, then that's a perfect time. It'll be a little bit easier to deal with those weeds, but you want to stay on top of it. I know I have an issue where I need to watch is on the edge of the curb and the asphalt on your street. That tends to be where a lot of seeds get washed up from other people in the neighborhood, and in that crack, a lot of weeds grow because sometimes you wonder, like, where did these weeds come from? And sometimes they come from there. So whether you use a weed whacker to get rid of them, whether you want to pour vinegar on them, or another environmentally friendly product to get rid of them, or you just get down and wet them and then give them a good pull. They usually come out pretty well. especially with a little bit of water. So again, no fertilizing necessary. Just be patient and the lawn will bounce back. This gives you time to enjoy the garden more and do some work in there and just, be confident that your lawn will come back. So the next thing I want to talk about is our deciduous trees that you may have on your front lawn or your boulevard. I know those are city trees, but they still cool your house, cool your street, add to your property value. They really are important. So they do need a bit of love and a bit of water this time of year. But their trunks do not need water. Their leaves do not need water. We don't need to be spraying the tops of them at all. Just like we're watering our gardens and our lawns, we want to be watering. And so it's good because when you're watering the lawn, you are also watering your trees because we don't necessarily need water, especially if it's in a mature tree, doesn't need water right at the trunk, right at the base where it meets the ground. If it's a younger tree, then yes, that surrounding area will need some water. But if it is mature, that's not the case. You want to look up at the tree and see where the branches are and the width of the tree and kind of look down. And that kind of area is the feeder roots. That's where they're thirsty and that's where they need some nutrients. But that can be tricky in a small property or in a boulevard because that tends to be like the asphalt, the road, the sidewalk, your driveway, that type of thing. So try to get as far out as you can with those restrictions to water. So when you're watering the grass, think you're also watering and giving some love to those trees. I do want to say when it comes to watering the garden and watering, whether it's the lawn, the garden, or our trees, not a fan of those oscillating sprinklers. You know, the ones we ran through as kids? A lot of water is just in the air, and I don't know, wind's blowing it away, whatever. It's evaporating. I really recommend, and I just did a post and a video about it as well on my socials on Instagram, um, getting a different type of sprinkler. So getting one that is circular and the water comes out all directions, all the way around, and it's not a high spray. It's definitely a lower spray, and I know that can be tricky when you try to pick one from a big box store. But you can see in the video on Instagram, and we can put a link to it in our show notes to the video of my gardenia one. Now it's old. I've had it a long time. It's that you can tell the orange and turquoise is kind of faded, their branding colors, because it really has been a workhorse in my garden and yard. There's no way. I think people like the oscillating ones because you want to water your lawn all at once. You want to put it on 20 minutes, half an hour, get all of your lawn watered. Well, that doesn't really happen unless you have a teeny tiny space. For the most part, it is better to just do it in 2s or 3 stages. And I think with the circular one, you're getting better coverage and better control. The water isn't going up so high. It's not being wasted. And then when it comes to the garden, you are getting the soil wet. You don't need to get the plants wet. You don't need to get the tops of leaves wet, that type of thing. Really, you need to get the soil wet, especially close to the roots, the base of the plants. So the round ones, you can turn it down so it doesn't, go as far, and you can tuck it in between your plants and make sure your shrubs, your evergreens, and make sure that water is going exactly where you want it to go. So please consider doing that. I know some people like to stand there and use the spray gun, and that's very satisfying to do that. But you'd be shocked at how you think you've been standing there for a long time, but you really haven't. So unless you're setting your watch for like 15, 20 minutes and you are standing there for that whole time, it really is deceiving, and that water is not penetrating deep enough to feed those plants. And I also talked about in my latest newsletter, my other trick with watering, if you're worried, and especially if you've got new plants and you're really worried that they're getting enough water, is an old wooden spoon or a new wooden spoon. Pick one up at the dollar store and stick that down, and you'll be able to tell when you pull it back up again whether the stick is dry, whether it's wet. You will really find out very visually whether the plant is getting enough water. Because the tricky thing is especially for newly planted plants, the symptoms of not enough water very similar to the simple symptoms of overwatering. So it's really helpful to know what's going on below the soil, you've got plant roots, and you've got mulch. You've got a lot to get through. And again, that's where I really think leaving that sprinkler in different areas for 20 minutes and really letting the water absorb as opposed to it flitting around in the sky or in the air. So give that a shot. And if you have any other watering questions, feel free to reach out and I can help you. Um, Regarding August, our shrubs, our flowering shrubs in August in the garden is anything that has already bloomed. So has like wigilias, lilacs, anything that's flowering and that's a shrub, spireas. Take a look and see if anything needs to be pruned off or to control the size, or if you see some dead or damaged branches, some branches without any leaves on them. Now is the time to prune them. I'm not going to say trim, I'm going to say prune. And by prune, I mean going right inside the bush and cutting down closer to the main section of the shrub. We don't want to make them into balls and we don't want to make all these cuts on the outside of our shrub because whatever we cut is where we're going to encourage new growth. And you don't want all the new growth to be on the ends and nothing be on the inside of the shrub. So you're not going to want to cut it right back, but you can take every third, every fifth branch and cut it a little bit shorter to encourage new growth in the plant. And sometimes it just really helps rejuvenate them. And so that the new growth will look brighter, and you might even get a second bloom on things like wigilias. They may again start blooming in September once the new growth starts. So that's another incentive to do that. All right. I hope that helps with your deciduous plants. Next up, August in the garden is also a good time to trim your evergreens. So cedars, yews, I think right now are our main evergreens that most people grow. Many people, boxwood's a whole other story, and I'm sure everybody is aware in our general Greater Toronto area about the issue of box tree moth and the damage it has done the last couple of years in boxwood. So I still drive around and see there's people who I think it's going to come back, or think if they just watered it some more, the boxwood will bounce back. That's not going to happen. So if you do have a neighbor who is holding on hope and hanging on to their boxwood, even though they're dead as a doornail, please take mercy on them and go and let them know about my podcast and the box tree moth so they can educate themselves. Unfortunately, the garden centers have orders and stock of boxwood, so they're going to keep selling it. And they're not going to necessarily be, telling a lot of people about the threat of box tree moth. So that's my story for boxwood. So hang in there. Well, let's start with cedars. Trimming the outside of them, shaping them. It's a good time of year to do it now. You do want to pay attention to any holes, any brown spots that you might actually have to go into the shrub, much like the deciduous ones, and prune them up and encourage some new growth. If your hedge is very tall or like huge privacy hedges, you may strongly consider hiring a professional so that they can be properly fertilized and properly trimmed at the right time. It's now is a good time for light trimming by the homeowner, but sometimes the arborist, well, I know for sure the arborist will dictate when the best time is to do that, especially with a large mature hedge that might need a little bit more attention and more feeding. When it comes to fertilizing our hedge, again, go back to the water soluble. If you feel like your hedge needs some fertilizing, please don't bother with those tree spikes. They might fertilize that immediate area, but they're not going to be super effective for a larger hedge, especially a mature one. And even for individual columnar cedars, like emerald cedars, that type of thing, I think you're better off with a water soluble fertilizer that the roots can take up right away to help them get through, especially this drought. Keeping them well watered is really important, especially cedars. the trick about cedars or evergreens in general is they don't immediately show. Like our hydrangeas will wilt quickly. I know my perennials, my phlox look sad when it's needing water. Evergreens, cedars especially, aren't going to show that right away. They're going to show it in a few weeks when it's kind of too late. Not really too late, but you know, they're going to show some drought and then force you into immediate action, and then it becomes almost like an emergency. So stay on top of that. They really will benefit from a good drink. Consider a soaker hose. That's a nice way to take the pressure off of you. You could set it up to a timer even, or just have that soaker hose attached to your hose. And in the morning when you get up, turn on your hose, have it a good soak for 20 minutes, a half an hour, and then shut it off. And then you know that your cedar hedge has been taken care of. Same with yews. So yews are great in the sense that they don't need as much water. They are good in full sun to full shade, but they don't need a ton of water, like I said. But they still need some water. And now is a good time to trim them. They also don't need a lot of fertilizing, so you don't need to worry about that. But trimming is important. And if you have a hedge, especially like a linear hedge, you want to make sure you are trimming them slightly like an A. You don't want it to be a completely vertical shape. You want to make sure that the top is not shading the bottom. Sometimes you'll see that where the bottom of the hedge at the ground or it starts to get thinner, and you don't know what to do with that. So you definitely want to trim it in more of an A so that the tops do not shade the bottom and the bottom still gets enough sun. And you want to, make some clips. Again, if you see anything dead, if you see something bare in your yews, then it's okay to go inside. If there's no little, I know yews have like a different leaf. It's very woody and there's like little leaves. If there's a stem in there, a wooden stem without any leaves, go ahead and cut it, and that will encourage some new growth. Um, I don't like to cut too much, too many evergreens beyond August, really, because again, we're encouraging new growth. And so we don't want to have new growth in September, October, when we could start getting frosts. So it really depends, because I know our frosts are happening later and later. It is a bit of a moving target, but I feel like it's better and better for the plant and you in your garden to start seeing new growth sooner versus later, and versus leaving it till the fall and worrying about it then. So yeah, so that is my tips for watering and looking after everything in your August garden. The bonus is it is hydrangea season, and please give your hydrangeas some love. They'll let you know when they need some water. I highly recommend, if you've heard anything from me over the years, the paniculata varieties of hydrangeas. They will be able to handle the heat. They will withstand a bit more drought, and they will really perform better than the macrophilia ones that look similar to the ones at Easter time, the pink and blue ones, that type of thing. They really struggle. I've seen a lot of posts of people trying to grow them in containers, trying to do a whole bunch of different things, and they just don't do well. So I definitely recommend the paniculata varieties. If you want something tiny, Bobo, there's a new Firelight Tidbit I've just added to my garden to test it out. Little Lime Punch is another new little one. Little Lime has also been a favorite of mine. If you have a bit more shade, then it's a small version of an Annabelle hydrangea, so that variety. So aberrances type, which are really the Annabelle hydrangeas can be are native, and we've hybridized them a little bit. Incredible is one that's supposed to be the big blooms get a little bit bigger, and they're supposed to be on sturdier stems. So I've switched to try that out myself, and more petite. So if you have shade, those are a great option. And I talked about them in the last episode about what's wrong with my hydrangeas. So feel free to look back at that episode if you've got questions about hydrangeas. So sit back and try to enjoy your garden this time of year. Look for what's attracting the butterflies and the hummingbirds to your garden, where you might have some gaps. Snap a few pictures, and then you can plan for next year or plan for putting something that blooms in the fall in those spots, like New England asters, rudbeckia. Keeping Paying attention to the size that those both grow, because some of them can stay a nice size and some of them can get a little bit tall. So it is a good time to enjoy your garden with everything that's happening. I know there's been lots of bees and butterflies and things buzzing around my garden, which I love. Adding a water feature, it's a good time. Adding like I even just put I've got a terracotta saucer, and I put a ceramic pot in my garden and put the terracotta saucer on top and added some water and a flat rock, and it's shocking, like the bees and butterflies will pause there and get a little bit of a drink. So you need to top it up every once in a while and keep it clean. But it is nice to see water in the garden as always. And I have a couple of those plug and plays where I picked up where you just plug it in and it's self-contained water fountain that you can hear and looks nice. We had birds drinking in it in the this weekend, and it adds something special for the birds. But it also, I find, helps me enjoy my garden even more. So that's a whole other discussion, but that's something you could add to your garden. And I know the bees and butterflies and birds will thank you, as well as I know you are going to enjoy listening to it. So I'm always here, so please reach out. You can contact me on my socials or on my website. My email address is there, Joanne at down2earth.ca, and send me a question if you've got a question for me for what's happening in your August garden. I'd be happy to help. Thank you very much for listening. If you are looking for more detailed help, of course, I have written a book, Down the Garden Path, a step-by-step guide to your Ontario garden. And no, you don't need to live in Ontario. It really walks you through what to do when in your garden. I know there's a lot of books that talk about what to do, but they don't often tell you when to do it. So that's why I love these segments, the August in the garden, as well as that's how we set up the book. So it walks you through everything you need to know and what to do in the garden this month. So please check it out. And if you think that this episode might be helpful to a friend or a neighbor, then please tell them about it and forward the link. I love to get new listeners. So thank you everybody for joining me down the garden path, and I hope you find this episode of August in the Garden as helpful as I'd like it to be for you. Bye for now.